Hey guys, welcome to another movie review. Today I'm talking about the new Spinal Tap sequel called Spinal Tap 2: The End Continues. This is a sequel to that 1984 original Rob Reiner mockumentary film from way back in the day. This is probably the longest wait we've ever had for a sequel. And like I said, this is meant to be a direct sequel to that 1984 film that Rob Reiner worked on years ago, which he also happened to star in as this fictional director. But in this film, you guys, we do follow these characters 40 years later. Um, that fictional director that Rob Reiner played in the first film comes back for this one as well. And basically, it starts off right away with him basically letting us know that the band kind of disbanded, years ago. But they went pretty strong for many years after that first Spinal Tap film happened. That film kind of reignited the band in some ways. And so all these years later, he's trying to get the band back together for just one more concert. And to do that, he has to get, the relatives of, the ones that are still alive, the ones that still have kind of the rights to the band and everything like that. He's trying to track down the band members that are still alive. And basically, we kind of get caught up with everybody. We kind of find out the gigs and the careers that they've had over the course of the years since we last saw them in that first movie. And so, over the course of this film, they are trying to get this big concert up and going. It is kind of like a one night only thing where if you do miss it the one night, you're never going to be able to see these guys perform again. So, they do try to make a big deal out of it. They try to make a big publicity deal out of it. And, they have to prep the band again because they haven't performed together in years. And there's also special guests that happen throughout the course of the film that kind of help them kind of have the right inspiration they need to get back on track with performing in public again. We have Paul McCartney and Elton John and a band member of Metallica and a band member of Red Hot Chili Peppers and a bunch of these other characters that show up over the course of this film. And it all leads up to a big concert for what could potentially be Spinal Tap's final concert in person. So overall, guys, I thought this film was okay. I am a huge fan of that first This Is Spinal Tap movie. I even kind of made a short film, or I basically was in the process of making a short film years ago that was very much in a mockumentary format similar to This Is Spinal Tap. The two films I made before that ended up getting greenlit and made, put on the internet and stuff like that. The one that was mockumentary unfortunately didn't come through. There was a lot of loopholes that I had that prevented it from getting it made. But it is one of those things, though, where it is cool that this film that I saw years ago when I was in high school, the first This Is Spinal Tap, did get a sequel, and it's cool that, all these years later, I almost made a film that was kind of in the spirit of This Is Spinal Tap with, mockumentary and fictional characters, but based in our reality and stuff like that. But there's things about this film that I overall enjoyed, but there's things about this film overall that are a little bit disappointing, and after 40 years, you think they would come up with something a little bit better than what they did. But like I said, it's not that it's a bad movie, but I am going to go over some positives and negatives as to why I like the film overall, but why there's also some negatives along the way that prevent this from becoming a great film necessarily. So for those positives, you guys, basically my first big compliment of the movie is I think the band is just as fun and charming as you remember them from that first film. So if you like the way the band performed, if you like kind of the jokes and the way that they bantered with each other and, practiced with each other and performed with each other in that first movie, I think you're going to have a lot of fun here with how they do it this time around. They definitely didn't lose that charm over the course of the years. So thankfully, 40 years later, they still have that charm of performing as this band together and still having a lot of fun together too. And overall, too, there were some moments here that were really funny. One joke I'm probably not going to try to spoil here, but I am going to try to give you context so when you do see the film, you'll kind of know what I'm talking about. But there's one character that we kind of catch up with him early on in the movie, and we find out that he's basically been making music for call centers, and what he comes up with for this fictional award that he made for that he got for one of these songs, I thought was really funny. So if you see the movie, you'll probably know what I'm talking about. He kind of makes music for call centers, and that's basically what he was doing with music-wise since the first film. Overall, there is some really funny jokes here, and there's even a joke involving this giant butt that appears at their concert and stuff like that. That also is really funny. So there is some funny moments here where if you look for them and if you pay close attention, you're probably going to catch some really funny jokes that land every once in a while. I also thought this film did have a more focused direction this time around. It felt like there was an actual story being told and more of a goal that they were trying to reach by the time the film was over with. The overall story slash goal of this movie is obviously they're trying to get this concert ready, and it is kind of about them, getting the band back together, making this concert happen, getting all the preparation they have to do to make the concert happen and to make sure that it doesn't fall apart. So I do like how the film had a very focused and large goal in mind overall over the course of this film. It wasn't just funny stuff and them doing like a little video journal the way that they did in the first film. They actually had an actual story this time around that they were trying to focus on and trying to keep within the reach of what they were trying to do. So I thought that aspect of the story worked pretty well for the most part too. I also thought Rob Reiner as the host and narrator also worked again this time around. Very fun character to watch. Very fun to watch him as the narrator as well. So very fun to kind of just watch him as this character and play the narrator. And I just think Rob Reiner is a good performer overall. It's great to see him do both stuff behind the camera and in front of the camera. And I think that works overall in this film overall too. I also thought some of the guest stars were also really fun this time around. We have, Elton John, Paul McCartney, like I said, I think one of the drummers from Metallica, one of the drummers from Red Hot Chili Peppers, and it was just fun to see some of these guest stars appear and kind of do a fun little joke jab at the band at one point in time during the movie. And it was fun to see them appear as guest stars and see how they contributed to the story overall. Whether it was just a joke towards the Spinal Tap band or them actually wanting to have a desire to join the band to be a part of this concert. But for my negatives of Spinal Tap 2, unfortunately the film does meander a lot. There's just a lot of times where the film isn't really too worried about the plot in certain times, and so it just kind of meanders from plot point to plot point. There's just a lot of time where the film just kind of goofs around a lot, doesn't really focus on what it wants to be or what it wants to do. And it is a little annoying sometimes when it does try to keep major plot points way at the very end or way in the middle or way at the beginning. So by the time we're at these plot points in the story that really kind of don't matter, it's just kind of a waste of time for us as a film viewer because they are working towards a plot. They clearly have a more focused goal in mind of what they're trying to do this time around as opposed to the first film. But there is a lot of meandering scenes that kind of just don't really go anywhere. I also thought some of the out of sync post-production sound effects were kind of noticeable here too. Like there's one where Paul McCartney is seeing them practice before this big concert happens, and the way he's trying to kind of keep up with them backstage to kind of see if they're in tune and stuff like that. It's hard to tell whether they added that in post to make it sound like he was more in tune with them, or if that was him trying to do sound effects outside of what they were. So it was just kind of a weird little thing that they did. And it wasn't just that scene with Paul McCartney. There's other scenes too where the sound or the way like a background character comments on something that just kind of feels out of sync with everything else. I don't know. It could have just also been the theater I was into, but I thought some of the post-production sounds do feel a little out of sync every once in a while in the film too. And overall too, you can definitely tell by the second half of the story that they're kind of running out of things to do. I don't think we're going to get a Spinal Tap 3 if I'm being completely honest with you. Sounds like this film in particular isn't doing the greatest in the box office anyway, but I think the second half alone of this movie proves that you really can't, there's not a lot of steam left in the engine of what you could do with the whole Spinal Tap thing. I think 2 films is more than enough for this with this band of characters. I could be proven wrong. Maybe somebody somewhere out there outside of Rob Reiner has a really cool idea for a third one, but as far as I'm concerned, after seeing this film in particular, I think this idea is kind of run out of gas, and it's really evident here when you get to the second half of the film, and it's really just the concert that's working and whatever funny moments they have left in the second half that are kind of effective. But overall, for the most part, I think this idea kind of ran out of gas, and I think the second half of the story kind of proves that that's the case. I also felt like this film overall didn't really add a lot to the first film, and it also really didn't add a lot to the whole mockumentary genre. Really, just besides the band getting back together and our going down memory lane and having a little nostalgia trip of them performing again, that's really all this film is. It really is just getting the band back together, having one more concert, having a few more couple of effective jokes. having a couple of improv scenes that are kind of funny, I guess, and it happens to be in the mockumentary genre again. So I just felt if you're going to do a sequel, specifically all these years later, try to add something new to it. Try to bring kind of the modern times into the film a little bit. Because for me personally, I felt like they just didn't really add a lot of things to the first film that really warrant a sequel. So it's just really too bad that they had all this time and they didn't really bring a lot as far as adding new stuff to that first film. And overall, too, I thought some of the newer characters were kind of boring here. One of them's supposed to be the daughter of, I think, one of the band members that passed away or something, and she was kind of boring. Didn't really have a lot to do in the movie. There's also kind of the agent character that's trying to get this event up and going for them for their concert. And I thought he was kind of boring, and he literally kind of disappears near the end of the movie. And you'll see what I mean when you watch the film. Kind of a wasted character also. So I thought some of the newer characters were a little boring here. Besides some of the guest stars like Elton John and Paul McCartney, those are really the only kind of newer characters that really kind of do anything in the story that are meaningful in any way. So I thought some of the newer characters were kind of boring this time around too. But overall, guys, I'm going to give Spinal Tap 2 a 7.5 out of 10. I think there's things about it that are really good. I think the whole bringing the band back together thing for one more ride I thought was pretty effective overall. But like I said, it does meander a lot. There is some out-of-sync post-production sound effects. It really is kind of running out of ideas, specifically when you get to the second half of the story. It doesn't really add a lot to the first film or its genre. And some of the newer characters where I thought were a little bit boring this time around. But overall, like I said, 7.5 out of 10 for me. It's okay. If you find it on streaming, you find it as a rental someday, I think that's a totally fine way to watch this film. I would also say, too, make sure you're a fan of that first This Is Spinal Tap movie. Otherwise, this film is really probably going to be kind of a drag for you. It's not really a film where you could just watch this one and not see the first one. I think seeing the first one is kind of crucial to enjoying this one. So 7.5 out of 10 for me. It's okay. I would say rent or stream this one if you really like the first Spinal Tap movie. Otherwise, if you're not really interested in it very all, I think you can just kind of skip this one altogether. But like I said, it's okay. It's kind of just for the fans. And I think if you are a fan of that first film, I think there's just enough material here to warrant at least a one-time watch for this film.